There's lots of people behind us busily polishing, and this is because this is the concourse section. So what we're going to do today when we meet people is we're going to jump on in, ask them about their cars. But something that I took away from the feedback that you all gave me last year was you wanted to see people's cars in a little bit more detail when we were talking to them. So we're going to show you that over the top as we're chatting away to people, and hopefully intersperse it with some of the cars coming in, rows of cars, because there are over 800 classic cars here today. I'd be here for hours if I was to show you everything. So we're going to catch up with some of my favourite cars that are here today. We're going to start off with the concourse section, and then we're going to move through to the car park. So let's go, because I've spotted a rather interesting Daihatsu Applause. Our first pick of today is this Daihatsu Applause. And Steve, this isn't a British number plate. Where have you driven from?
I've driven over from Sweden to attend the festival of the Unexceptional.
And how long has that drive taken you?
So far, I've done just over 2,000 kilometres.
Goodness, and what, in Sweden, people might expect to pick something like a Volvo. What's led you to pick a Daihatsu Applause?
It was a car that found me, really. I bought it about 2 years ago from a deceased estate. It was sitting in a shed, looking very sorry and forlorn for itself. And so I took it under my wing, and with a little bit of hard work, some elbow grease, here we have it.
Fantastic. And so I imagine, what's it like getting parts over there for this?
The parts supply is pretty much zero. The parts that I've had to get is sort of like scouring through eBay, places like that. There's nothing that I've found anyway that you can just get off the shelf.
And so what does that mean? Do you use this on a regular basis? Do you save it for sunny days?
I've used it locally pretty regularly, actually. It's sort of like I had to prove its worth before doing anything, longer journeys or stuff like that.
Of course.
To build up my confidence in it. But yeah, it seems to be, touch wood, working okay.
Brilliant. And so you're in the concourse section today.
Yes.
Tell us, why do you think your car should win?
Probably there are other cars here in a much better condition, but I suspect that there are fewer cars that have done the sort of mileage this car's done. It's currently on 185,000 kilometres.
Really?
Yeah, I expect that many of the cars here are very low mileage and pampered vehicles. And of course, I've got the car is so unique. There aren't many around. Probably not even here. There's going to be another one.
Well, I'll tell you what, we might be at the Festival of the Unexceptional, but I think that makes it an exceptional car in its own right.
Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for stopping to talk to us today.
Thank you, Steph.
Now you might say to me, Steph, why is a K11 one of your picks? But look, I love the K11, and for me, this is everything that embodies the values of Festival of the Unexceptional. Now, Stu, what has led you to K11 ownership?
I've had 16 of them in total now.
16?
16, yeah. Used them as rally cars, autographs, general road cars. I love them. Absolutely love them. They're brilliant.
So what got you into a K11 in the first place?
It's the rallying. We used to run the Formula 1000 juniors, 14, 16-year-old kids. And if you see the abuse that they gave these, and they still kept going. But I say they're quirky, and they're just fun as well, which is a good thing.
Now I've noticed the price of these is going up, because a few years ago they were £100, £200, and now some of these are topping, well, making four figures, aren't they?
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like this one now, it's done 25,000 miles, 2 owners. So
really?
Yeah, 2 owners. It's sort of up in the top of the price range, but there's still not a lot of money, you know, to be invited to something like this today.
Yeah.
You know, it's what it's all about. It's sort of, you don't have to have loads of money and have a 5-6 figure car to come in a nice ground like this.
No, absolutely not. And I think this is the great thing about Festival of the Unexceptional. Now, I guess my question for you would be is, what kind of community do you have? Do you have like an owners club, like some of the other classic cars?
There is a micro sports club, but that's mainly towards more the modified side.
Yeah.
But they're sort of trying to keep them standard now, as this one is. It is starting to filter through now, and people are starting to realise that they are going to become a classic in 5 years' time.
Do you think it is a classic yet, or do you think it's getting there?
It's getting there. It's we take this to shows. You do get a few funny looks, and people say, "Oh, it's not a classic car," but like I said, it's 26 years old now. So give it 5 years' time, be 31 years old. So then that's when it'll start being accepted a little bit.
Exactly, and I think actually, for maybe the younger generation, these are a classic car because this is what grandma drove, mum, dad, the local shopkeeper, everybody drove a Nissan Micra, or know somebody who did.
Yeah, that's what I mean, and that's what is nice to have about this, is that when you do take it somewhere, someone says, "Oh, I remember so-and-so had one of them," and "Oh, my auntie had one of them, and we went to Skegness and or
Yeah.
wherever, you know." But like I said, I love them. I've got another one, which is a convertible as well.
Have you really?
Yes,
I don't think I've ever seen it. Have I seen a convertible one before?
it's Japanese import.
Is it really?
Yeah.
And what? I wish the convertible was here so we could see that as well. Have you got anywhere online that people could find pictures of that?
If they just it's on a Facebook group, on the Ashby and Fallville group, it's on there. It is. It definitely gets attention wherever it goes. But I use it for work. I drive it 50 miles a day.
Do you really?
50 miles a day, roof down. It's automatic, air conditioning. But like I said, this just sits in the garage. He's also known as Gordy.
It's absolutely fantastic. And I was saying to somebody earlier, the chat with the dads who applaud, whilst this is an unexceptional show, some of these cars are truly exceptional in the fact that they still look as good as they did on the dealer's forecourt. And this one, I would say, it looks like that. It's brilliant.
Yeah,
It's a real testament to you.
It's taken a lot of time. It's taken a lot of time, but we've got there.
Well, congratulations and fingers crossed for you today.
Yeah, lovely. Cheers. Thank you.
Cheers. Hello, Anthony.
Hello.
What a cracking Fiat 128.
Thank you very much.
Now, again, I was talking to a man with the Datsun earlier. He wasn't on British plates either, and neither are you.
Okay.
So, where have you driven from?
I come from the Netherlands.
Gosh, and how long's that taken you?
Yes, because I think this is a wonderful event.
Yeah.
And I was invited because, the audience thought it was a nice car. So it's one of the few left in the Netherlands.
Really?
Yes. There are, I think, 3 of the Mark I version. So
Is it really? Is that all that's left?
yes. And I think here in the UK, there are not many left here.
No, and then this is quite a different choice to be going for in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
What led you into Fiat ownership?
Yes, it's always the same story. My father bought in 1970
Yes.
a Fiat 128 Mark I,
Yes.
an olive green. And after a few years, it just rusted a bit away. And he bought another one. But it was for 1970. It was a very famous car also in the Netherlands. It's a very modern car.
Yes.
So I don't know if there are much left here in the UK, but I don't think there are.
Not really,
No.
no. I think you have to go to places like Italy now to be seeing stuff like this
yes, that's
more
correct.
frequently.
Yeah.
So in terms of a Fiat 128, I was talking to somebody earlier, trying to get parts, what's that like for you?
Yes, mostly I bought the parts in Italy.
Okay.
Via eBay. There's some dealers in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
But mechanical parts for the Fiat. Fiat built it for the other, the Strada. Do you
Yes.
know a lot of mechanical parts well built on that cars, also from the 128. But for the interior also, it's very difficult. So,
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
yeah.
So you own this 128, and how long have you owned it for?
I own this for 3 years, and I bought it from a Fiat dealer who had it in the showroom for 30 years. So,
Really?
yeah.
What? It hadn't moved in 30 years?
Yes, and it has for miles, 35 miles on the clock. So I think that's the reason why it survived. And then otherwise it was rusted away after 10 years. But so yeah, I own it now for 3 years. Yeah.
So a car that's been off the road for 30 years, what
Yes.
recommissioning did you have to do to get it back?
Yeah, I have overhauled the engine and all the mechanical parts, all the rubbers, etc. But Yeah, some parts are sprayed over, but mostly it's original. Yeah,
And how long did that recommissioning process take you?
it was COVID time, so I had
Lots of time.
lots of time. So I did it in 2 years. Yeah.
Brilliant. And what do you think your future looks like with this Fiat? Do your family love it? Do you all go out together?
Yes, my family love it, and
Oh,
it will never go away. Never.
oh, I love
Yeah,
that.
Yeah.
And have you got somebody to pass it down to?
Yes, I have a lot of friends, and now we're gonna drive it in the Netherlands also with these events, but mostly when it's dry.
Yeah.
So I hope for this day it
I
stay
think you
dry.
should be okay. There were black clouds earlier, but I think we're going to be all right. Well, fingers crossed for you, because I know they're doing judging today on the concourse, and you've certainly driven a long way.
Yes.
And she's done incredibly well to make it here. So
Thank
well
you.
done to both of you.
Thank you very much.
A little bit like that Micra, the Renault Laguna definitely fits the bill of Festival of the Unexceptional. But in today's modern world in 2023, who owns a Renault Laguna?
Well, I obviously do. I'm a bit of a Renault geek. I've had lots of them. I think this is the whole festival effect almost, isn't it? I don't know which came first, whether the love of these kind of young timers came first or the festival fueled that love. But I've had this for 5 years, and no, it's a fantastic modern classic.
Is it your first Laguna?
It is my first Laguna, yeah. Not my first Renault, but my first Laguna.
So how did you get from the point of being a Renault owner to a Renault Laguna owner?
I don't know. I think there's something about once cars get to a certain age, they seem to come back onto the radar, and you seem to appreciate them with a different eye. So, yeah, I've had older ones and then crept towards this. And also, there's a certain fun in being able to buy a cheap car and have a bit of fun with the cheap car, look after it, preserve it, maybe move it on. Things don't seem quite so much fun when you've got to spend 10 grand on a car.
No.
So yeah, that's probably how I ended up buying this. It was there, it was cheap, it was fun, and the reason I've kept it is because I just love it. They're fantastic to drive. It's an absolute sofa on wheels.
You talk about sofa on wheels. I actually felt like I was experiencing it was a real throwback to 90s childhood earlier when I saw you and all your family sitting in the car eating sandwiches and drinking tea out of a flask.
I think the thing I would take away from that is the depressing fact that you'll remember the 90s as your childhood and I remember the 60s as my childhood. I remember doing that in the back of a Mark 1 Cortina. But yeah, we said when we got here that this could be the car park for a National Trust property in like 1997. You know.
It's so true. It's so true. Now I know that everyone's going to be thinking at home, what is that Renault Assured used vehicle warranty sign? Where have you got that from?
We picked up some spares and some bits and pieces from a local garage that was closing down. They'd been Renault dealers back in the day, because Renault back then used to use a lot of smaller garages, and then when it became a bit more corporate, they took the franchise away from these garages.
Oh, okay.
And this is a garage in Cantersthorpe near Leicester. And they'd always been Renaults. They've worked on this. They MOT'd it for me a little while ago. So yeah, he had some stuff in the back of a shed that he wanted to get rid of. I was its natural home, so there it is, yeah.
Fantastic. So what's the Laguna scene like? Are there lots of people out there with them? What's the score?
It's up and coming, shall we say, which is a nice thing because it means they're still affordable. If you go on Facebook Marketplace today, you can buy a nice Laguna for £1,000.
Really?
Which I think is fantastic because they are such a usable thing. If you can't garage it, they're quite robust. Spares availability is still pretty good. I mean, it's very basic engineering. So yeah, it's a great sort of starter classic, shall we say.
Absolutely, and I think you made a really good point earlier that there's a lot of fun to be had in cheaper vehicles that you don't necessarily get with a 10 grand
Yeah,
car.
people moan because they're saying, oh, old cars are so expensive now. It's because they fixate on the car that they think is old.
Yeah.
You know, if you want a Mini, then yes, it's going to cost you a lot of money to buy a decent Mini. But don't buy a Mini, buy a Ford car instead, buy a Panda, buy something that is still cheap and throwaway, but is actually great fun.
Such a good message. Do you drive this a lot or do you keep it for special days?
It's a high days and holidays car. We've got a works van, so I use that every day. And yeah, there's other cars that get in the way as well. So yeah.
And what's the future for you and your Laguna? What's next?
I want to find some nice alloys for it. I want to try and get the original alloys for it. But otherwise, no, just keep it as it is. It's incredibly low mileage. It's like 41,000 from new. There was an elderly gentleman had had it from new. He sadly passed away a few years ago. That's how it came on the market. I met his daughter, bought the car, and I sort of feel a certain pride in being able to keep it for him as well, you know, because he would have loved this, you
Oh,
know.
absolutely. And you know what, this car's a real credit to you. It's really tidy.
Thank
It's
you.
lovely to see you enjoying it. And thank you very much for bringing it to the show today.
No, you're very welcome. Enjoy yourselves.
This is Guy, and this is his incredible Triumph Herald, which, if I'm honest, I wouldn't put in the Unexceptional box because I have a strong love for a Herald. I mean, you've owned Penelope for quite some time, haven't you?
Yeah, I've owned Penelope since 1988. It came with the name Penelope because it was Jaguar Heather at the time, which is, for those who don't know, a sort of dirty pink colour, and hence Penelope Pit Stop or Lady Penelope. And I bought it because I had a Dolomite Sprint at the time, and I blew the head gasket, and I paid £125 for Penelope, and it basically now, I mean, I restored it again during lockdown, but I did it first in '94, and it's basically a standard 1360 with the exception of a Spitfire gearbox, which gives me overdrive, which is
That's handy.
a real boon, especially we've done 130 miles to get up here today. So
Have you? And how's she performed?
yeah, good as gold. Just, yeah, put her on the motorway, pointed north and went.
That's such a great attitude to have, because I think a lot of people won't take classics on the motorway. Would you say it is safe to take a classic on the motorway?
I think as long as you're sensible about speed, you know, I sat it there at sort of between 55 and 60, just sat quietly, minding my own business and not overtaking too much, and you're fine. Obviously, if you're not using the car a lot and you've got tyres that are past their first youth, you've got to be careful. But I went through it all last weekend. It's got, you know, tyres that are 2 years old on it, which I can be comfortable with. But I think where people come unstuck is where they don't look after them.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. Now, would you think it's fair for me to say that when you bought Penelope, she probably fell in a box where it was a bit of an unexceptional second car or just an older car?
It was an older car, a lot rustier than it is now.
Yeah.
You know, it was two-tone, it was pink and rust.
Yeah.
And it was... I'd always had a soft spot for Triumphs. My dad always had Triumphs.
Yeah.
And as I say, I was a bit upset with the Sprint at the time, and I just needed something to get to work. And somebody I work with just said, "Well, I've got a Herald. Do you want it?" And I said, "Well, what do you want for it?" And he said, £125. And I went, "Yeah."
Amazing. So what's made this car so exceptional and made you want to keep it for so long?
I've no idea.
35 years.
I know. I've no idea. It was just I first rebuilt it body off in 1994,
Yeah.
and then it's just, you know, I've never got around to getting rid of it really, and I'm stuck with it.
She's a keeper, I think.
Oh,
Definitely.
absolutely. The Daily Driver's Triumph 1300, same colour as yours.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, God help you, because I imagine Penelope's a lot more reliable. So thank you for taking the time out to
Not
chat
a problem
to us.
at all.
She's
Lovely
a
to chat with
beautiful
you.
car.
Thank
Real
you.
credit to you. And maybe one day we'll see some of these cars that people think are unexceptional today becoming exceptional in the same way she
Absolutely.
has.
Thank you
Brilliant.
very much, and lovely to see you.
Lovely to see you. Saw this and made an absolute beeline down the field for it. And this is Thomas and his dad's DAF 66. Now, this is quite an interesting choice. What's led you to a DAF 66?
So my father and I have been working on DAFs ever since I was about 7 years old. I mean, I'm 20 now, so I've been working on 15 years. He's been working on them since he was a kid, and he absolutely loves the DAF transmission with the belt drive, and his father owned them, I've owned them, he's owned them, and he absolutely loves them. The transmission is just a unique thing to have in the car, and he's always seen something different about them, and has always had such a passion for them, almost. But it's brilliant. I thought I'd bring it today as something you rarely ever see. I mean, I think there's only other one more DAF here so far, but it being something with an upgraded engine and a bit sporty, thought a bit different.
I was going to ask you about that because I think everybody can probably guess from the stickers and the
Yes.
bonnet that it's probably a little bit spicy. So what is
Yes.
the engine and why have you changed it?
So the engine is a 1400 lump, so a 1398cc Renault 4-cylinder engine from a Volvo 340. The basic lump is a standard Renault 4-cylinder, which is the same as DAF would have fitted back in the 1970s. And we've put it in with the original carb setup and upgraded the brakes and stuff, but we've had to do an engine swap due to the original engine having a head gasket failure from previous owner. We obtained the car and the engine blew up about 6 months after.
Oh, really? Was it just beyond repair?
It was beyond repair. It had seized the block internally, and it was about a £450 paperweight, so
Really?
it was a shame.
Is it not very easy to get engines for these?
So engines we can pick up the standard blocks ourselves or from scrap yards if need be, if there's any lying about, or just from Volvo 343 owners or 340 owners club if they've got engines lying about or whatever. But as me and my dad are the only ones in the country that work on these cars, we obtain our parts from ex-dealerships that have closed down, other owners of the club, or we can just pick them up from other manufacturers and so on and so forth.
Now, I hear a lot of cobblers online that people go, oh, young people aren't into classic cars. What's the DAF scene like? Are there lots of young people?
So the DAF scene, there is starting to be a few more owners pop up. Me, myself, and I think there's probably 3 or 4 owners are around the ages of about, say, youngest being about 16, oldest being about 25, have slowly got into them due to family roping us into it and obtaining ones of our own. I mean, I've got my own, which is a 72 DAF 55 estate, which I'm in the process of rebuilding due to an engine failure and a front end accident. But there's another owner who's 16 with his DAF 66. He's just taken to prom and stuff. So we've got lots of people slowly getting into them, but due to family members getting older and passing the cars down through, we've decided to bring it onto a newer generation, upgrade the cars a bit, give them a bit more sporty look, and bring them into the next generation for younger owners and stuff. And they're easy cars to drive with the transmissions, forward to go forward, back to back. What could go wrong?
And are they easy to work on? So if someone is watching this and is really inspired by you, is it easy to get into? Is it a lot more technical than people might be expecting?
To get into working on these for the transmission, you'd have to read obviously with the owner's manual, and we have open days to come down and self-explain. There is videos online, and there is obviously the DAF Owners Club in this country and over in Holland, along with DAF Hobby and all of those over there, which have tutorials and obviously information on how to work on the transmissions. They are very simple to work on, but you have to have a lot of patience, as they are very finicky with small parts and ways of how they're built underneath.
Fair enough. Now, I guess the last question I'll leave you with is, if anybody wants to get in touch with you or your dad, because you mentioned that you are kind of the people to go to for parts or advice or expertise, where can we find you?
So we are based in Manchester Square in Peterborough. We have our business. The obviously the information is on the side of the car as stated.
Yeah.
If need be, we will have information through the DAF Owners Club, so the easiest way to get through that is just to search up online DAF Owners Club, or if you get in touch with DAF Hobby, you can get through to DAF Owners Club and DAF Classics UK, which is us.
So it's DAF Classics UK?
Yes, DAF Classics UK. There is a Facebook page available under the same name, and phone number is set on the side of the car as well, and on the Facebook page.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you so much for giving us time today.
That's all right, no worries.
and I saw this Hyundai Pony, and I thought, when did I last see one of those? And then I clocked the learner sticker on the front of the car, and I thought, who on earth has picked a Hyundai Pony to learn to drive in 2023? I mean, it's a great choice, but what's going on? Anyway, I bumped into Adam, and this is your car, isn't it, Adam?
Yes, it is.
Now, what has driven you to pick a Hyundai Pony to learn to drive in?
It's because a few years ago I did wanted to drive. At one point I didn't need to, because when I went to college I could use public transport, and so I didn't really need to learn to drive. But since I've been into these kind of cars for a good few years now,
Yeah.
and I wanted to own one myself, and so I went browse around it was about 2 years ago, browse around on carandclassic.com,
Yeah.
and I saw this one for sale for $1,300 based in Bournemouth. And we managed to pick it up. We managed to I got the price down to 1,000, so I bought it for 1,000. It has 17,500 miles on it when we first got it.
That's nothing.
Yeah, and then it had 2 owners from new. Technically 1, because the lady who originally owned it used it the most, while the second one had it for like a few months before giving it away.
Oh, that's brilliant. Now, I guess my question to you is you told us that you have got into cars in the last few years. How did you get into cars?
Well, I always was into cars generally, but not these type of cars. I've been a fan of anything that has wheels on it since the age of 3. So I always had car books in my childhood, Auto Trader magazines, a lot, love looking at classified ads. Just any car really, but I got really into these Unexceptional cars back in 2016, 2017, and so I followed a few people on Flickr and other places, and they were all car spotters that spotted cars like these, and that's when I got really into it. It's like a part of my personality now.
Oh, that's really good. Now, I guess my question to you is when you're learning to drive, are you taking lessons with an examiner at the moment?
I am learning to drive on a modern car, a Ford Fiesta, with a driving instructor, but I do drive this with my dad, you know, to go around on a Saturday afternoon. Mostly just drive it about because, you know, it needs driving, and I don't want to leave it constantly under wrap all day.
Yeah. And which do you find easier to drive, the modern car or the Hyundai?
At first, it was definitely the modern car because it had power steering as standard, and like it was a lot more nippier, and obviously because of all the turbo engines inside it and like all the different techs, it was definitely a lot more easy to drive compared to this one, which doesn't have power steering. But I managed to get a lot more used to doing parking in a non-power steered car.
Has it been a big jump for you, or have you found it? Do you really enjoy it now?
I do really enjoy it. It's definitely some learning curves that I'm still learning with when driving this car. You know, it's very different to like the modern one. Obviously, the brakes are different, the accelerating different. There are problems with this car that, you know, like all cars do, like of this age.
But then I think you can find cars that are only 5 years old and they've got problems.
Yeah.
So I think whatever you buy that's used will have a few problems. So, but it's very, very tidy, isn't it? It's a lovely car.
It's very tidy. Yeah, very tidy for its age. I mean, I forgot to wash it today because I haven't got around to.
Don't even worry about it. It's just a real joy to see it here. So did you drive here today?
Yes, all the way from Warwick to Grimsthorpe.
Oh, brilliant. So that's quite a distance, isn't it? How many miles is that?
I would say, I mean, it takes about 2 hours to get here. I'm not really sure. I didn't pay attention much to miles because I was quite used to. I was too busy focusing on the road, but it was definitely a 2 hour drive since without the motorways.
Well, goodness, 2 hours as a learner. I think that's jolly fantastic. Well done. So what's your next thing? So you're a car spotter, so you've been doing lots of car spotting here today. Where can we find all your pictures after the show?
You can actually find my pictures. I use a website that tend to be used on Wikipedia. You heard of Wikimedia Commons?
Ish, yeah.
It's a photo depository where all these images are licensed under a free license, so you can use it as long as you credit with someone. It's like a share-alike license, and that's when I upload pretty much most of my images, including the one I car spotted. I do photograph normal cars as well, and anything in between. You know, I photograph everything regarding cars. It's got up to about a collection of 10,000, and I still got a few thousand backlog that I haven't got around of editing. My username is on there is Voxford, so it's a combination of Vauxhall and Ford together.
Brilliant. Well, we'll find you there. And thank you so much for bringing your lovely car. And well done as well for being really brave and doing 2 hours as a learner, because that is no mean feat. Some people that pass the driving test won't do 2 hours, won't even do an hour. So well done. And I really look forward to seeing it next year's show. I hope you bring it back.
Yes,
and
definitely
hopefully
will.
that learner plate will be in the bin.
Yes, I hope so.
That incredible triumph, and then I flipped my head round and saw a Fiat Superstrada, not just any Fiat Superstrada, but a cabriolet. And Carolyn, who owns this with her husband, it's David, isn't it?
Yes,
your
it is, yeah.
husband? And you own it together.
Yep.
Now this isn't. I know that it's Festival the Unexceptional, but this
Yes,
is really exceptional.
it is, yeah.
I think it's the only one in the field today, isn't it?
It is. I haven't seen another one. No, there's a lot of other Fiat ranges, but not another one of these. I mean, I think the last time we checked, there's only about 7 left registered on,
Really?
roadworthy. So yeah, it's getting quite unusual now.
So how long have you owned the Superstrada?
Nearly 13 years.
Really?
Yeah, so we've had it quite a while.
What brought you into ownership?
Well, my husband had one a long time ago, and he always said, if I ever see another one for sale, I regret selling the old one.
Yeah.
And then he found this one, and here we are.
Fantastic. And have you had to do much to it?
No, not apart from the usual sort of maintenance, no body work. This is original. As far as we're aware, this is the original condition of it. We've never resprayed it, anything like that at all.
Gosh, that's good going.
Yeah.
Do you use it a lot?
Yeah, during sort of 6 months, summer,
Yeah.
Obviously it doesn't come out in the winter.
No.
It gets treated into sort of storage. But summer months, car shows, classic car shows, fakes, all that sort of thing, and weather's nice, out it comes.
Brilliant. And have you come far today?
About 50 to 55 miles, just south on the A1.
Oh, so it's still a fair way.
It's still a fair trek for an old car, yeah.
You spoke to me there and you mentioned that there were less than 10 left on the
Yeah,
road.
I think so, yeah, you can do a search on them, yeah.
So what do you do around parts? How's that?
Tricky. We actually got it out Thursday, ready to bring over today, and
Yeah.
it went wrong, and it's like, what are we going to do? And you just have to it was leaking fuel, so just had to go on Amazon and buy some bits. He's an engineer, so he'll just fabricate something, made it, and here we are. And it's working fine.
Well, thank goodness you found it on Thursday, not this morning.
Well, yeah, it was a touch of plan A, plan B and plan C. We've got other classic cars as well, so it was a case if it wasn't going to work, we'd bring something else. But I'm glad we brought it. The sun's shining, it's a lovely day, go home with the roof down.
Absolutely. So is this your favourite of your collection?
I guess so, because the unusual factor on it. I think it's probably, but we've got several others, but yeah, it's the one that I think causes the most amusement and the most, confused looking faces by people who don't know what it is.
Well, it's brilliant and it's incredibly brown.
Definitely 80s, yes. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for bringing
You're
it.
welcome.
A real pleasure talking to you. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Yes, thank you.
Goodness the sun has arrived. So
Absolutely.
finally.
Yeah, go home with the roof down.
Yeah, just as far as that cabriolet looks. Thank you very much,
Thank
Caroline.
you, you're welcome.
Fred and I have been absolutely entranced by this 1980s Toyota Land Cruiser, and we are obsessed with it. So we had to come and track down the owner, Rob. Rob, it looks very well used. Do you use it regularly?
Yeah, every day I drive the vehicle.
This is your everyday car?
Well, it's not my daily car, but I drive it every day. It's my works car, is to be the truth.
Ah, fantastic.
So when I'm in my work clothes, I'm out and about going places.
And what made you pick this?
I know Toyotas are reliable. I used to have a Range Rover. Not that that's unreliable. It was a petrol V8. And when I saw this diesel, my friend told me about it. And we just picked it up from Conwyn Bay in Wales.
Oh, did you?
Brought it back to Derby, and I've got it MOT'd and used it ever since. It's my work vehicle.
And how long have you had it?
I think it was 2011. I picked
You've had
it
it
up.
that long?
Yeah.
So what's that, 12 years?
Yeah, 2011 I had the car. I think it was 2011. Put it on the road in 14 because I had to do so much work to it.
And so did you say you're a mechanic by
Yeah,
trade?
self-employed car mechanic.
Yeah, so how do you find it to work on?
Very easy. Everything's still quite original. Everything undoes. There's never anything seized. It's brilliant.
And for someone who's watching this and is novice and really fancies one themselves, would you say it's a good starter, or would you advise them to go for something a bit more simple?
Regarding reliability, yeah. If there's someone who's not going to fix their own car, or don't think you'll find one. Like I said, they're quite hard to come by. But yeah, regarding ownership for a non-mechanic, it's a brilliant car.
And with there being so few, do you know how many roughly there are left?
I only think they made it for 3 years, and I haven't got a clue on the rarity of them, just that I don't see them.
Gosh, that's no time at all. So with such a small production life cycle, what's it like for getting parts?
Very difficult. I find things very cheaply, like the tailgate on mine needs replacing.
Yeah.
It's only $10 second hand, but it's £200 postage.
No, really?
And then you've got import tax.
Yeah.
So I've not done that. You can get salvage stuff at second hand parts, but they want high prices.
So there are a lot more in Australia then?
Yeah. They love them in Australia and I think Pakistan. I've got a lot.
Oh, really? It's a really nice bit of kit. It's so nice to see here, because I think that quite often a lot of pickups or work vehicles tend to get lost quite quickly through the passage of time because of how frequently they are used.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you see yourself carrying on using this as your work vehicle?
Yeah. I mean, I'll be a fool to sell it. Every week someone wants to buy it off me. When I go to the petrol station, people ask me questions.
Yeah.
Out of all the cars I own, it draws a lot of attention.
It is a fantastic bit of kit. And to say I know I keep saying it, but we're at the Festival of the Unexceptional, but it might be unexceptional to some, but honestly, I think it's one of the things that's really turned people's heads today. It's been
That's nice
brilliant.
to know.
Yeah, no, it's been brilliant. And I know you were telling me earlier that you didn't think that other people were going to be as interested, but
No.
I mean, there isn't another one here, and I don't think I've seen one in decades.
Well, when we first pulled up and we walked to the cars at the front, I'm like, my car's so much tattier than all these immaculate cars.
Don't worry about it. Do not worry about it. I think it's a show for people that appreciate cars of their own merit.
You do see them on eBay in the full original condition,
Yeah.
but they want 25, 30,000.
And you can't really use it then. It's
You
more
wouldn't
for
want to
museum
drive
use.
it.
No. Well, good luck to you, and thank you so much for bringing it today.
Not a problem.
Hi, Freddie again. My favourite car of the show is the Honda Hijet. I'm a big fan of Honda. I've got a Honda Grom and I think it'd look absolutely perfect strapped up in the back of one of these. Another key reason why I do love these little K-trucks is that we've got one at work. It's a little Suzuki Carry 1.3 and we've used that as a workhorse for years and it's still up to the beat. It just does everything. A lot of people really want a big van to throw everything in, but it's absolutely amazing how much you can actually get in these little vans. So for me, I think the fact that it's a little bit modified as well, I am quite a fan of that. Yeah, this is car of the show for me.
I first met Owen at, we met at the NEC,
NEC,
didn't we?
yeah.
And you were telling me that you had these Wartburgs, and then I was walking down and I spotted this and I thought, I've got to try and find you. But Owen, you're really young and you're
Yes.
British. How have you ended up in the world of Wartburgs?
That is a good question, and a lot of people ask the same thing because it is kind of a strange area, but I've always been interested in the Eastern Bloc stuff, and I wanted to try a Wartburg. I started out with a 1981 left-hand drive in brown, and since then I've had 11 Wartburgs, and yeah, I moved on to this 1974 right-hand drive, which is currently my only Wartburg now, as I've sold others on as projects. But yeah, it's strange. Once I started with one, I just couldn't seem to stop. Everyone seemed to keep offering me them from there, so yeah.
So, I guess with it being a vehicle which wasn't native to England, just that right-hand drive element, is that quite rare?
Yeah, definitely. I think, yeah, I've had 5 right-hand drives, and everyone says, oh, the right-hand drive is a rare one, and it is. I mean, there's 10 to 20, as we know, in the club,
Yeah.
right-hand drives left, and a few more left-hand drives around that have been imported. But yeah, the right-hand drives are really rare in the Wartburg world, definitely.
I know there's a Wartburg next to you,
Yes.
but, which makes them almost seem commonplace.
Yes.
But how many of them are there left, or knocking around the UK?
As far as I know, 10 to 20 right-hand drive Knights, and I've had 5 of them somehow, which is a large percentage.
Yeah.
And I think there's about 20 left-hand drive 1.3s, which is the later one like this, where it had the 4-stroke engine
Yeah.
and various other upgrades to the exterior as well.
It's such an interesting car, but I guess really for anybody who's maybe never been behind the wheel of one, and my question as well would be, is what has kept you hooked on the Wartburgs?
I think it's just how different it is, especially with the engine as well. It's a 2-stroke, and I just find that like quite a novelty, and it's quite nice to have something different, you know. And at a show like this, you've got everything is different as well, but it's nice to see something that maybe, I was going to say not everyone has, but obviously there's a Wartburg next to me,
Yeah.
but it is the only 2-stroke one here, which I just quite like having something different. That's what I like.
And then, shock some people at home, how far have you driven? Because I know it's far.
We came from South Wales, so it's a good sort of 4 or 5 hour drive, and we came up last night. We had one scare where I thought the car was going to break down, and then we turned it off and back on, and it was fine. So it got us here. I don't have a dynamo working at the moment, so I've got 3 spare batteries in the back. If I need to swap them around, then we're good. But this battery's lasted me 5 or 6 hours. It's not run out of battery yet, so yeah,
Okay.
that's fine. But I do need to change the brushes in the dynamo very shortly.
Is there any plan B? Have you got breakdown cover? If
We've got breakdown cover, yeah. But I mean, if the battery goes, I'll just quick change another one.
And you know what? I love that optimism. I think that's great.
Yeah.
We definitely need to collaborate on a video soon, because
Definitely.
this is a car that I don't know too much about, and I don't think a lot of other people do. And I think your joy and your enthusiasm could spark off a bit more.
Yeah,
Now I know that
definitely.
you do content and stuff like that. Where can we find your stuff?
So we do a YouTube channel, OG Cars, myself and Georgina, and our dog chilling over there as well, running around. Yeah, we do a few videos, so we've got a few on the Wartburgs, and we did a trip on this video as well from Northern Ireland back through Scotland and through England, where I lived at the time. This lives with me in South Wales now, but yeah, we do lots of journeys with all the cars, so there's plenty of stuff on there.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for your time,
Thank you
and
very
thank
much.
you for travelling all the way from South Wales.
It's great fun. Thank you very much.
Now I'm going to be asked by a lot of people, Steph, what was your favourite car at Festival of the Unexceptional? And bear in mind that I think there's over 1,000 cars here. It's absolutely crackers. But the car for me that stood out, and I've seen most things here today, is this incredible Tatra. Now you might be wondering to yourself, Steph, what on earth is a Tatra 603? And I was hoping that the owner would turn up, and then Mel magically appeared. Mel, tell us about this fantastic Tatra.
It's quite amazing, isn't it? I'd always fancied having a Tatra because they're just incredible cars, but they're quite expensive if they're in concours condition. I had offered to sell a kidney, and then this one came up, which is not the full amount, because you can see it's got a bit of patina. It's quite faded, and as you see inside, it's not got a complete interior. So I sold a couple of cars, 2 Morris Minors and a Bedford Rascal van to help to pay for it. And yeah, here it is. Here it is.
Now I've got some questions for you. I think number one question is I mean, this is capturing everyone's imagination, because I think most people are like, what is this and what is a Tatra? Now you said you'd always wanted to own a Tatra. How did you know what they were?
I've got quite a wide collection of cars, including a lot of Eastern Bloc cars. So I've got Trabant, Wartburg, that type of thing. And there are a couple of others on the road in the UK, and I'd seen them and heard them and thought, wow, and seen pictures of them, and they're almost not legendary status, because they are real, it's not a legend. And it's just the shape, and I'm sure in a bit we'll go and have a look at the back and the styling, and everyone thinks, oh, it's an American car. They say, oh, that's a nice American car, isn't it? They say, where's it from? And I say, it's a Tatra. And they say, a what? I say, a Tatra. Well, where's it from? We'll go around the back. Czechoslovakia. You wouldn't credit it, would you?
It's a really incredible car. Now I'm going to confess that I don't know anything about this. So what engine have you got in it?
It's a V8, air-cooled, about 2.7 litres in the back because it's air-cooled.
Yeah.
And that makes it go pretty well, but it's quite thirsty, 20 miles per gallon. So you wouldn't want to go too far in it at today's prices. But having said that, in terms of miles per mile, it's just brilliant.
And what do you do for parts? It must be difficult.
Parts aren't actually that hard to get, because there's quite a number of Tatras around. They survived. I mean, this one is ancient. I know it's got an Irish plate on it. That's, I've not had it very long, and the plate was on it when I got it, but it's actually as old as I am. It was built in 1964.
So is that the end of production?
No, production carried on quite a way. They modernised it, and it went to a square 3-box shape, very straightforward. But yeah, so there's actually quite a community. I mean, some parts, so this has had to have the oil coolers, because it's air-cooled and it's quite a big lump. To keep the oil cool, you have oil coolers that sit underneath, and they had to be specially made, and they're about £1,000 each or something horrible. But most, it's actually quite a simple car. You can get most bits for it. There is a community out there. Tatra themselves are still in business. They were a car maker. Most car makers started, in the early 1900s. They went on to make vans, trucks, trams. Lots of trams in Eastern Europe are Tatra trams, and there's still a couple running. And they still make trucks, big, heavy-duty, ultra-reliable trucks.
Well, thank you so much for showing us this vehicle. I'm just lost for words. This is such a fantastic bit of kit, brilliant bit of history, and thank you so much for bringing it down.
It's a delight to share it, and I think if you've got a classic, and it doesn't matter what it is, and the brilliant thing about this festival is it really is a festival for car enthusiasts. You don't have to be a car nut, because it's the happiest, friendliest car event that I've ever been to. And there are so many people, and they'll say, what is this? And people tell you all about the cars and the stories that go with them. So it's just a delight to be able to share it.
And it's a delight to be able to see this, so thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Well, we have had a fantastic time at Festival of the Unexceptional 2023, but it's time for me, Freddie, and the much loved Proton to head back to Yorkshire and get on with editing this video. Now, I know for those of you that are eagle-eyed and see lots of pictures of the Proton, you all have spotted this down here. Don't panic, this didn't happen at Festival of the Unexceptional. Unfortunately, somebody clipped the car whilst it was parked up yesterday, so really gutted about that. However, there's very little in the world that isn't fixable, so we'll get that sorted. And I think that's the great testament that you get with cars like this and all the cars that you've seen today, is that so many of us are invested so much further into these cars than just what they're worth on paper. I really hope you've enjoyed watching what I've been able to show you of the show. I haven't seen every single car myself. I haven't spoken to every single person, but that's the magic of this show, is there's so much to do, so much to see, and so many wonderful people that you never tire of all the things that are here and you never fully get around it. Please, first of all, the Unexceptional organisers, make it a 2-day event. This is absolutely incredible. And if you've never been before, get on early, get organised and buy those tickets when they go on sale. But until next Sunday, when we're back on car reviews, take care and drive safely.